you're toxic. Look, I know you're toxic. The question is, do you know that you're toxic? If you want to grow and you want to get better, then it's my job to just be there and help you as a brother and vice versa. So a lot of times we end up attacking, like we don't know how to communicate with each other. If I can't even control how I talk to you when I'm trying to help you, then how in the world are you going to hear the message that I'm trying to get across?
But if I articulate it well, it's going to be received well.
Welcome to the Classic Man Podcast. I'm Justin Kashmirchik, also known as the Jump Cut King. And before we dive into today's episode, a quick word. First off, if this is your first time tuning in, hit the subscribe button, tap the bell, and drop a link. There's not a lot of content out there for men being real, honest, authentic, and diving deep into what really matters. And that's what we're doing here. And if any of this resonates with you, support it. It costs nothing and means everything. You can catch Classic Man on all major podcast platforms, so head over to classicmanpodcast.com after the show for guest info, all the links, bonus content, and maybe support the team. Buy them a cup of coffee. Secondly, beyond being a friend and brother to these guys featured on this podcast, I also launched a business that might just change the way you think about web design. It's called the EGT Universe, and you can find out all about it at egtuniverse.com. And to get on the ground floor when we launch the public service, you can join the newsletter and get in on a whole new way to build your brand online. No more Squarespace, no more WordPress, just a sleek, high-end luxury web experience without the price tag of a Fortune 500. And if you or someone you know is launching something or operates a brand, a nonprofit, a business, and they need a digital facelift, my marketing company can help them. We've already started serving startups, creatives, and even big organizations. It's a real impact. Go to egtuniverse.com and drop me a line. But for now, turn it up, tune in, really focus. Let's get into today's content.
What's up? This is Coach Carter, and this is the Classic Man Podcast. I'm excited to talk to you guys today about the fact that you're toxic. Look, I know you're toxic. The question is, do you know that you're toxic? You got myself, Coach Carter. Listen, I've been coaching at the varsity level, different sports. I've been a strength and conditioning coach, so I've worked with youth from all ages. I work with adults, being in the Army, and currently do some work in social work and just the development of humans. Frederick Douglass said this: it is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. So I'm working on repairing broken men still, because that doesn't mean I'm going to give up on you just because it's a little bit more difficult. In fact, doing things that are difficult is what we're going to talk about today. It's not just me on here today. I have my main man with me. I'm going to let him introduce himself to you guys and just to give you a little bit about why he's here with me today.
What's up, y'all? My name is Alex Martinez. I'm here with Coach Carter. Thank you for letting me be here with you.
For sure.
I guess a little bit of my background is I'm retired from the U.S. Army.
Yes, sir.
Had some really great guys train me, gave me a lot of powerful knowledge, showed me a lot of things that I gained wisdom on. On top of that, we're both work with youth and do some social work to help keep on continuously building and sharpening the mind for us. And on top of that, man, once I got out of the Army and had my tours, there was a lot of toxic there that I think I had to overcome, but it took a while.
Yeah. I
learned a lot, man. I had to relearn myself, learn new triggers, learn that I was being toxic when I wasn't. You know what I'm saying? That's about what the knowledge I can give off, man, is my personal experience. Like I said, a lot of hard struggles in there, as well as even losing my late wife and all that.
Yeah.
So a lot of hardship, a lot of toxicity and all that. And
for sure.
Trying to rebuild and now unteach what I taught my kids.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's huge.
You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
That's what's hard is trying to unteach them the toxic traits that I was once showing them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's what I feel like is really cool, being able to have two people here with some similarities in background and some differences in background to really be able to bring you the full picture with real life experiences, real life stories. We're going to talk about some of our own stories. We're going to talk about stories from whether it's battle buddies that we've had in the service, whether it's other people that we've helped while protecting their identity, but just being able to share whatever the key pointer thing was about where it is that person was in life. So everything we're going to give you is going to be 1000% real. No made up stories, no sentimental wins or victories in that regard. Like, it's either going to be a real one or a real victory, or it's going to be a real loss. Everything we're sharing with you guys is 100% real life. That's because you're going through real life. So I can't make up stories. I can't make up things and points or illustrations to give you a point when I can give you real life. And this world is so crazy nowadays that there is somebody with a story somewhere. Now, here's what I can tell you. There is nothing that you're going to go through or nothing that you're going to bring me or us that we haven't dealt with in some way, shape, or form. No matter what it is you're dealing with, whether it is substance abuse, whether it is domestic violence or abuse in that regard, whether it's bad in-laws, bad family members within your own family who are manipulating you or driving you towards certain actions or behaviors, or whether it was people in your life that expose you to things that you probably shouldn't have been exposed to at certain ages. No matter what it is, we've either dealt with it or helped somebody else deal with it. And within that, we're going to talk about the ways to be able to cope, get through life, and develop you into the type of person that you want to be. So Classic Man is all about healthy masculinity, right? We're two men, so we can't teach women how to be women. We're going to talk about what healthy masculinity is, and then we're going to juxtapose that or compare it against what toxic masculinity is. And so toxic masculinity is what today's show is about. And there's 4 things that I said we're going to talk about. So number 1 being emotional availability. I know that's a tough one for men, emotional availability. Are you emotionally available? What does that mean? So from the toxic point of view, you can kind of talk about this one first, right? What does it mean for a toxic person to suppress their emotions? What could that look like, or how could that bubble over into something pretty toxic?
Man, for me, one thing I first did was numb inside.
Yeah.
You know, I feel numb inside, and I would like to isolate, you know, because that's comfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Separate myself because, you know, when I'm toxic, nobody knows me. Nobody knows what I'm going through. Mm-hmm. I'm the only one here, you know, and so you don't know how I feel.
Exactly.
But really, I mean, there's 8 billion people in the world. Somebody knows how we feel.
For sure.
But that's how I was thinking, you know? And so I would suppress my emotions. When I first came home, man, I couldn't cry.
Wow.
I didn't know how to cry.
Yeah.
And if you ask my kids, my older kids, they'll be like, man, I don't think I've ever seen my dad cry except for a couple times.
Yeah.
But that's because I learned how to cut my emotions off and suppress them so deep.
Yeah.
From being cross seas. And then when I came home, if anybody could look at me, they could be like, man, this dude, he's nuts, man. What's wrong with him? You know,
right.
Everybody would be like, man, why you look mad? Yeah, I didn't know I looked mad, but I got so used to always being mad that my face would hold that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that biggest thing would be is I would detach, you know, from my family. And that's the, you know, them are the things that begin to hurt the family when you're toxic and you're suppressing them emotions.
Yeah, and you're disassociating with what's going on. So then you can't identify with what they have going on, right? Exactly. So they're not able to connect with you on the things that you have because you aren't talking about them. But then it also starts to seem like everything that they're going through, you just don't understand. You're blind to it. You don't feel what they're feeling about it. And so even if you are kind of processing it on your own and like kind of isolating it and putting it in its own box in your head, they don't see that or understand that or know that or feel that. So then they still feel emotionally ignored. Right. You know, that was one thing, man. So in one of my situations, so I was engaged back when I lived out in Philadelphia. And within that relationship, the way that we dealt with conflict were 2 opposite ways. Okay, so when I'm dealing with conflict, I would shut down. Okay. You know, so I'm either not going to talk about it right in that moment, you know what I mean? Or I'm going to let you sit there. And then when you're done, we can have a conversation about it. And the way it came out for her was the opposite, where because she saw certain things in her home life and things always blew up, things got aggressive, things oftentimes got abusive.
Yeah.
So how she began, and this sounds cliche sometimes until you experience it and go through it, but the only thing she knew was that aggression.
Right.
The only thing she knew was for things to explode. So while I cared and attempted to communicate that, she couldn't receive it because it didn't look like I cared to her.
Right.
So she would continue to nag and agitate and yell and fuss and get more and more aggressive until I had the response that she wanted to see.
Right.
Right.
She was used to.
Exactly. And so to her, oh man, you don't care. Why don't you not doing this? You're not doing that. When the whole time I did care and I expressed that, you know, but it just didn't bubble over. So now by the time you get me to the emotion that you want to see, to feel validated in what you're expressing, I'm so far gone because you had to agitate me so crazy to get to the point of bubbling up, you know what I mean? And bubbling over.
Yeah.
That now nothing you say at that point is going to register to me. Like I'm gone.
Right. You're right. You shut down in there. And you know, I feel like that's easy for soldiers to do. Because that's our discipline, you know, just okay. I'm gonna sit there, I'm a stonewall.
Facts.
You know?
Yeah, from little situations to bigger situations where, man, I just got back. When we got back from training, this was last year, we didn't expend all the ammo.
Okay.
Right? So we thought we expended all the M4 ammo. The next day we had the M17 range, and we no longer had access to the M4 range. So because we didn't expend the ammo, that meant that somebody had to guard the ammo until we could turn it in, right?
Yeah.
So now when we were supposed to be able to be back at the barracks, we had to set up ammo guard. So I filled in with as many people as I could to do the ammo guard. I'm like, okay, just because, you know, these are my guys, it doesn't mean that I'm going to skip taking a shift myself, right? So if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to lead by example. So I took what I considered to be the toughest shift, you know, so that was supposed to be 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. And we were out having fun. You know, I'm not going to describe what that fun was, but we're off, you know what I mean? Goofing off, just being able to rewind and relax because we finished everything we needed to do. So we're drinking a little bit, stuff like that. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to sleep before starting my shifts, because if I go to sleep at midnight, 12:30, you know,
I'm feeling crap.
Exactly, right? So now I got to get up at 1:30 because you got to get out there early, make sure you're relieving those people. So I just ended up staying up. I also was responsible for making sure everything got cleaned up, put away, and that while we had permission, that those above the person who gave us permission didn't know that we had, you know what I mean, those things going on. So I get out there 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., cool, whatever. And the next set of guys did not wake up.
Oh, man.
Okay. So they were supposed to have a 2-hour shift. They didn't wake up until an hour into their shift.
Oh.
So now it's 5 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
And I get back and we're supposed to be cleaning the barracks. They want to start cleaning at 5:30. I just laid down.
Man, yeah, I ain't getting back
right
yet.
So then, because of where I was asleep, I was upstairs where the higher NCOs, the seniors, and the officers were. And then so Captain comes out and he sees me asleep. So what does he do? He wakes me up.
Right.
And he's like, man, get in there and clean that latrine. Like everybody else is out here cleaning.
Why
and you're in here asleep. Little does he know, I had 22 minutes of sleep.
Oh, man.
At the point that he had woke me up. Right, yeah, because I had literally just gotten off shift because my own battle buddy screwed me over. But at the same time, you know, what was I going to say to him?
Right.
Like,
yeah, you just, for the moment, you had a little blue falcon there. You know what I'm saying?
I did. And man, like everything that came to mind for me to say towards him, like, you don't understand. I just, you know what I mean? And I could back talk, I could mouth off, but that's just not how we're built.
Right.
You know what? That's what he said. That's what we get up and start to do. So then we take those things and we bring it home and we do the same things to our friends and family.
Yeah.
And they don't understand why. So like, I might know you like something. Faust might want A, B, and C. And so I might do it and never express why that was a bother to me in that moment. And now I'm pissed off or I'm having an attitude towards you. And you got no idea why I got an attitude towards you.
Right. You just care.
You know? Yeah, because, I'm not going to say something like this is what I do for the people that I care about, you know?
And it's super hard for me, man, because one of the things I have is like, I feel like my vibes are so strong.
Yeah. So
when I walk into a room, people are like, oh, I know you're mad, and I can't hide it.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to hide, you know what I'm saying? Even when I, I can try to I push that down, but if I go into work, I'm sure you see me like, oh man, okay, he just looks a little frustrated today. It's hard for me to hide, and I want to be like, oh, hey guys, how you doing? I'm just having a great day. But really, I'm like inside, I'm like, where's my coping skills right now? I'm like talking to the Lord, like, man, I don't even want to deal with these kids right now, dude. Like,
man, right.
And that's how it is some days.
Facts.
Man.
And kids don't understand either. Whether it's your own kids, whether it's kids you're working with, whether it's random kids who you come across, because they hold on to things that they see even from strangers.
Yeah.
So they recognize behaviors and patterns, whether they're able to vocalize what they're seeing or not. They still internalize it, whether they're able to communicate whatever it is at that point.
Right.
And so you'll see a 4 or 5-year-old or 6-year-old, and they might avoid you, or they might start to interact with other people, and you don't understand, but it's because of something they may have seen from somebody who looked like you, somebody who, and dogs are really good at this. And let me bring this example in. Like, if someone abused a dog, if a male abused a dog, you will see that then that dog doesn't associate with males.
Right.
But they're just fine with women. Now, a dog can't verbalize why they don't like to interact with males.
Right.
And sometimes kids are the same way, where something might have happened somewhere else, and they may be associating something with you, but they can't communicate why or what that behavior is.
Right. The shame in it.
Yeah, for why they associate that with you. And that's because a 4-year-old doesn't always know how to say certain things, or a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. They don't always know how to communicate certain feelings that they're having, which is why emotional availability from us is so important.
It is.
Because we have to teach them how to identify. So this is the healthy side, right? The healthy side to emotional availability is being able to identify and communicate emotions without being emotional.
Right.
Right. So I don't have to allow those emotions to control the way I convey what I'm feeling.
Yes.
So what does that mean? I can be sad, right? But if I'm sitting here crying and bawling my eyes out, I can't tell you why I'm sad.
Right.
I can't communicate the information. Or if I can't identify that I'm sad or exactly what it is that I'm feeling, then that's going to make it tough for me to explain to you what's going on, for you to then be able to help me cope with whatever it is
what you're going through.
Exactly. So there are times where, man, especially with our students, they're just loud, and that stimulation starts to bother you. Now, a 5-year-old doesn't know how to communicate that they're overstimulated, right?
Right.
But if you say, hey, like, you guys are being extremely loud, it's really messing with my head, it's making my brain fuzzy right now, it's making it tough for me to think, it's making it tough for me to be able to hear what it is that you need from me. You're then showing them, you're demonstrating to them,
right,
not just how to communicate, but also what things are associated, right? My brain is fuzzy. A kid can understand my brain is fuzzy.
Yeah.
A kid can understand, man, it's hard for me to think. And so being able to kind of quantify what it is that you're dealing with and express it to them gives them the tools to do the same things back to you. Or when you say, hey, like, I noticed that today your behavior is a little different. Is your brain fuzzy? Is it too loud in here? Is it that somebody was yelling at you? Like, were one of the other students yelling at you? Did you have a situation at home where your parents weren't paying attention to you today? And like understanding how to ask those questions without assuming that the behavior is always just because they don't know how to act right.
Yeah. And like, I feel the one thing as men that it's hard for us to deal with is knowing when to do that. Or how to do that, because a lot of people in America, okay, my dad was always at work, or my dad wasn't there, and so nobody ever taught him that. And the part where I'm at with my older kids now, I think the 2 oldest ones, they're starting to learn because they're 18, But my oldest daughter, I'm beginning to tell her, like, look, man, it's not about anything you tell them, right? Because you're just talking to them when you're whatever you're doing, you're just talking to them, and that doesn't matter to them. But what they see you do,
right,
when you think they're not looking, that's what they're going to do, because you inspire them,
right?
And they look up to you because you're bigger than them. And the same thing with parents, man. As men, it's hard to think like, okay, well, you can think anytime like the kids aren't watching you, but our kids constantly look up to us, and that's what I've learned in my life.
Yeah,
they've learned so much of what I had just done, not really about what I said.
Right.
You know? And so that's hard trying to teach a teenager these days. Like,
for sure,
especially if they have younger, siblings, or even if you got these, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds,
yeah,
it's even more important for them,
right?
For even America, because how these young kids see you guys driving around, I want to be like him.
Yeah. Facts.
It's crazy. And it's hard to teach a kid that.
Yeah.
Understanding it's what they do, not about what they say.
No, 1000%. And you know what? I'm actually going to take what was supposed to be number 3. We're going to make that number 2 because I feel like it goes really well with this emotional availability. And that's talking about, so what's now the new number 2 out of our 4 things that we're talking about with healthy versus toxic masculinity is self-reliance versus self-awareness. And so within the toxic masculinity, a lot of times we see that men are unable to ask for help.
Yeah.
So because we got to be so tough, we got to be so macho, we got to have it all figured out, we got to be in control. So that leaves us no room to express to other people the emotions, even if we are able to identify them. So, okay, I can identify them, but who am I communicating these things with? Because
right.
It's true that we can have a fear of expressing these things to our spouse, because then how is she going to view us, right? Because is she still going to view you as manly? Is she still going to view you as head of the household? Is she going to start to undermine your authority? Like, these are things that go through men's heads, because a lot of those things are then that we say, and those things that we communicate are often then used against us in future arguments.
Right.
And I was like, man, like, I feel like I can't share with you because it's being flipped back against me. Or if I do decide to tell you how I feel about something, now I'm controlling, now I'm telling you what to do. Now I'm manipulating you and this or that. And that's actually why I wanted to jump to this one, because I wanted to tell, I had a couple stories here, but one is with my guy who, him and I have been friends for actually a long time. He's one of my longest standing adult friends because I moved around a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
So from finishing 2nd grade to starting high school, I either lived in a different house or went to a different school every single year. A lot of those, both,
Right.
So moving to different parts of the city for different life situations, not all of them bad, not all of them good. So growing up, I didn't have that like childhood lifelong friend. So once I got to college, a couple of these guys that I just met in the gym, and next thing you know, like, we're just doing life together. That's and awesome. Yeah, it is pretty cool. And that's why I tell everybody, man, if you have no friends, go to the gym.
Go to the gym.
Especially because at the bare minimum, they're committed to making themselves better.
Matter of fact, even if you have friends, still go to the gym.
Thanks, right? Yeah, that's a good point. Besides just what it does for your physical health, the people that you start to talk to and run into when you're at the gym, they bring usually a lot of positivity to your life. And a lot of times they're just cool people. So my guy, he had a lot of different relationship issues in the past. He met this girl and they're still together, but because he wanted this to work out, he would talk to me about different things and situations before he would bring them up and address them with her. Right. And so what I learned is he had somebody he could turn to. And same for me. When I had situations, I could call him up and be like, man, just before I spaz out or before I allow my emotions to control how I interact in this conversation with my partner, let me take a little bit of time, right, and just vent, sort my thoughts, and then bring together, right, a cohesive set of statements, right? Let me be able to organize what's going on in my brain so that the same one person, and I've seen a lot of people, okay, I might not talk to everybody about what I got going on. I might talk to only my partner. And that's a huge thing. Like, I'm a very closed off person. I'm a very private person.
Yeah.
The one person who knows everything was my partner.
Yeah.
But that's a huge like load to carry for one person.
Yeah,
if they have to kind of be that sounding board for everything that you go through and every thought that you have, even if you don't talk a lot, because you start to talk a lot to that one person.
Yeah. I like that because it's accountability.
Right. And
the problem with accountability with people, especially men, for me, and I know that, I say this a lot. Women will be like, oh, all men are the same.
Right.
Men will be like, oh, man, all women are the same. Well, God made us in his image. We bleed the same color blood, So, of course, a lot of us can be the same. And of course, generations are raised the same because of the culture.
Right.
So the one thing that's hard is having accountability, because most of our life, we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for the younger generations, where both parents are at work now trying to survive with inflation. There's no real accountability at the house except for electronics.
Right.
And so if we've never had someone that's to hold us accountable, that change, man.
Yeah.
You're not gonna like what everybody's got to tell you. Well, whoever holds you accountable, you may not like whatever they're gonna have to say.
That's for sure. And that's huge, especially with, and same thing with my guy, because I had to start helping him identify behaviors that were negative on his part.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to hear the bad things about themselves.
Yeah.
But the most important part about this is, no matter what negative behaviors he had, I never made him feel like I wouldn't be his homie.
Yeah.
Right. So
right.
He didn't feel like I was judging him.
Yeah.
Or looking down on him or thinking of him as less of a person because of the different things he was going through, because of how he was raised, because of situations from past relationships. At the end of the day, if you want to grow and you want to get better, then it's my job to just be there and help you as a brother, and vice versa. So a lot of times we end up attacking, like we don't know how to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
So if you bring something to me and I start attacking you about how you're dealing with it, you're not going to come to me again.
Right. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like if I can't even control how I talk to you when I'm trying to help you, then how in the world are you going to hear the message that I'm trying to get across? And that's a huge issue for us. Because we speak very direct to one another. Yeah. And we've kind of talked about that at work a few times. It's like, man, like I cannot respond to these civilians the way that I would respond to my soldiers.
Exactly.
But even that within itself starts to let you know that that's probably a bit toxic, right? Like if I can't talk to civilians the way that I talk to my soldiers because of how they would take it, then it probably isn't the right way for me to talk to my soldiers. But at the same time, like, that's the way we get the job done. And you just start to understand it,
You do. That was literally the generation of the Army that I was brought up in.
Yeah.
I think a lot, I'm sure when I went through basic, it was like the peak of the war.
Yeah.
Rather from when you came in, it was probably starting to dwindle down.
Yeah.
So how they were handling things started to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I can imagine that, because I think I've told you a story before where I went to go smoke two guys. And then I end up getting Article 15 for it.
Yeah, which is insane.
It's insane. And so I'm like, all right, well, this is changing. But as an adult and as kind of healing myself and being a little more healthy and learning how to communicate well, I always heard my staff sergeant, my squad leader, treat your Joes great. Because if you treat your Joes great, they're going to treat you great when you meet. And so now that makes sense to me now that I've healed myself. It's not about what I say. It's about how I say it. I can pretty much tell them the same thing I want to say in the Army. But if I articulate it well, it's going to be received well.
Yeah. And that's something that I've been kind of working through, especially with. So I just got out of a relationship, man. This was crazy. While I was out at training in California, no signal, no electricity, no running water, I get a text.
John.
Not quite like that. So I won't do her like that. Nah. So it wasn't anything like that. There was no other person involved. Nothing crazy. Just some, honestly, some theological differences was like 80% of it. But then on the other side, she was like, I can never tell if you're mad at me or not.
Yeah.
Because you're so direct with how you say things. And like, you're not saying it in a mean way. She's like, but nobody has ever just like talked straight to me. So like I start to internalize these things and then I start making my own narrative, you know what I mean, in my own head. That's what she's saying, about, what you're thinking, how you're feeling, especially through text. Like she's like, in person, since I can kind of read your face and I've known you for a while, like that makes it a little easier. But like through text, I can't tell.
Text messages are dangerous.
It is. And so to me, I'm like, I'm being nice. Like this was the easiest way I could say this, or one situation. And I feel like it's important for us dudes to recognize how we're saying things and the amount of directness that someone can handle. So.
Hey, Hey, it's just me again, and we'll get back to that content in under 10 seconds. But real quick, podcasts like this don't grow unless you help. Hit the subscribe button, smash the like, and if you've already subscribed, thank you. Take a second right now and text this to 3 people you know. You never know who needs to hear what's coming next.
You know our importance for time. Right. So we like to be places on time.
Yeah.
I had one situation where she had already been late like once, didn't say anything. So second time, like I just worked a 10-hour shift. I got to drive an hour to come see you. She had to pick up her daughter from her mother's house. Now she was at her mother's house before I got off work. Okay. So I stopped to get gas. She was still there. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop and get something to eat.
Right.
You know what I mean? You still there. I drove 50 more minutes from that point and arrived at your house before you arrived at your house.
Yeah.
To me, that's crazy, right?
Right.
So I still didn't say anything. I'm filing this away in my brain. And then one other time where like I had to go out of town. I only had a few hours. This time she was driving down and she was like an hour late. And I'm like, all right, listen. I'm going to say this as kind as I possibly can. This is exactly how I said it to her. I'm like, I'm going to say this as kind as I possibly can. But, this is kind of like the third time that you've kind of not cared about the timing of things. And what that communicates to me is that you don't value my time and you don't care about our time together. And like just that I'm a low priority for you.
Yeah.
That's what that communicates to me. And that's what I told her. Like, this is how that comes across. I didn't say anything negative about her. I didn't yell at her. I didn't raise my voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
None of the above. But even saying it that direct, then later she used that saying like that was controlling.
Right. Okay.
Right. Because I want you to show up on time, or because, you know what I mean, you're spending time with your I never had an issue with you spending time with your mother.
Right.
I worked 10 hours. I drove an hour. I made 2 stops to give you more time.
Right. But if we have a schedule.
Exactly. And we had an agreement, you know what I mean? And you were supposed to make sure your daughter was asleep before I got here, which clearly isn't the case because I only had a couple hours. Right. So now we're going to use 30, 45 minutes of that with a bedtime routine. And it's like, man, so when somebody's using those things against you and you are communicating well, it then becomes a negative reinforcement while you're trying to do the right thing.
Right.
And we just can't allow those moments to discourage us in the future from being able to communicate and say the things that do matter and say it the right way.
Yeah. The one thing that I feel is really hard, especially coming from being an infantry soldier, we like to react to contact.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And so as I'm healing myself, now I'm asking God, I'm like, God, soften my heart.
Yeah.
So when I'm asking him that, of course, he's going to give me the wisdom. I can't just plug into him and get it. He's going to make me go through it.
Right.
So my wife, me as a photographer, and my wife has never been on time for anything. And as an infantry soldier, I'm always trying to move with a sense of purpose.
Right.
I'm like, man, trying to work through this. And a lot of the times it's hard, especially for men. And if we have toxic masculinity, you just want to be direct, like you're saying, like, look, dude, what is going on? Yeah. But I can't. I know I can't, because it's going to start a huge ruckus with my wife. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, God, I got you. Yeah. So now I'm like, all right, well, now I have to just tell her, look, man, wait, if we're going to do a photography session, dude, we got to be there early. Right. And most people don't know how much time photographers really got to be there early. Like, if it's a big event, I want to be there 3 hours before. It's a lot. And then to keep her, especially with women, I got to put my face on. Nowadays, the culture of it, they watch so much entertainment that I got to look like this. And if not, I'm gonna body shame myself. Right. And then to try to keep her on time. Man, all right. So that's really been teaching me, man. All right, how do I communicate healthier? Yeah, for sure. Because I can't just, exactly like you said, I can't go on and like how I would teach my Joes. And all right, hey, of course in the Army, me now, I'm me now with kids, I'm really trying to stop cursing. It's coming from a line unit, man. Every other word was
literally
F.
Right.
F. And so now I'm like, all right, if I say that, what do you think my youngest daughter's going to say? She's going to even sound like a sailor.
Right, literally.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but especially when they mess up, because that's when we dropped most of the words.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, there are certain times where like my second response is just, what the hell? You know what I mean? And it's like, so, you know what I mean? Or, hey, soldier, until you yourself,
right,
we're gonna stand right here and do exercises, or everybody else is gonna do exercises until you unbleep yourself. You know what I mean? And like, that's just, it's second nature when somebody messes up. But like you just said, it can't be second nature towards your kid, right?
It can't. And the one thing for us was that, like, when you use that word in the military, it's to catch attention.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's to catch attention. So then I'm used to saying that to my Joes, like, hey, what is going on?
Right.
And everybody's eyes snap right to me.
Facts.
I can't walk into work and be like, hey, what's going on? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does take adjustments, and it takes understanding time and place, right? And that's the same thing, whether it's within your relationship, whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your bros. Like you were saying, okay, I know you're going to be late 99% of the time. So I can then, and I had to do this in my previous relationship, I would start to then account for how late I started realizing she would be, So now I know, you know what I mean? You tell me 7, it's going to be 7:25. So then I'm still going to let you think 7, and I'm going to start then planning for 7:25 because I know where this is going. Right. And I can do that 90% of the time.
Yeah.
However, with the photography thing, we can't do that.
We can't do that.
So I can communicate, hey, like, I just want you to know, I want you to see that I've been doing better with not fussing at you about the times that you're late.
Right.
But this is one of those moments where I really need you to show up for me because of how important this is. And having those moments where you can say, hey, even with kids, as you start to teach time and place, they understand when it's okay to be loud. And I don't always stop the kids from being loud and playing around. It's like, man, you're a kid, you're not going to be quiet.
Right.
But when it's time to deal with these topics, or when it's time to work on this stuff, then I need you to lock in, and that's going to be something that, as you learn that, whether it's on your job, we recognize how to do it sometimes. What coworkers you can goof off with, and say certain things to,
right.
But then you also know what coworkers not to say certain things around, or even, man, we were sitting at the airport coming back from California, and I'm sitting with, I got a staff sergeant first class, and another sergeant sitting there, but the three of them had known each other for a long time. Okay. So he made a joke that was like a little borderline. Yeah. And I'm like, man, like, I like your sense of humor. I was letting him know it's okay for you to progress, because nowadays you say the wrong thing around the wrong person, and now it's an IG complaint, it's paperwork, it's this or that. And I'm like, man, like, with other types of things, you like, let's just go ahead and have the conversation.
Right.
These jokes are cool. And he's like, yeah, now normally until I get to know you, or until I kind of feel the situation out, like, I kind of stay away from these types of jokes, especially the dark humor, this or that. And I'm like, man, full send. Like, it's cool. Like, I gave him permission to be able to full send. But we have to recognize in other areas of our lives as well. Finances, if you're saving up for something, then this is not time or place for you to blow money. Whether it's, you got a lot of soldiers that vape. Oh, that's perfect, right? I got one. I can't remember if you and I talked about this or not, but we got one. She's an E4, and she's trying to become a sergeant, right? Okay. So she's been promotable for a while. The only issue she's had is she can't pass her PT test.
Okay, yep.
Right, so we were down at Fort Knox. We were running every day. Had that discipline, and this goes with that self-reliance versus self-awareness, because she could have said, getting the next rank is all on me. I got to do this. This is something that I need. I don't need any help. And she could have been lonely in it. She could have felt isolated in it. And that could have led to her inability to cope with the fact that she continued to fail her PT test, right? But instead, she had a moment of vulnerability. She said, look, this is a situation I've been having. I see you're out here running every day. I know you look out for all of your soldiers. Is it cool if I come out here and run? Would you work with me? I'm like, of course I'm gonna work with you. You gave me an opportunity to keep you from being alone.
Yeah.
And because of that, we can lock in, we can get it done. So she's like, all right, I'm gonna stop vaping. Cool. She stopped vaping for about a week.
Yeah.
We get back, I don't see her, you know what I mean? Because reserves, I'm not going to see you until next month. We get back next month, you tell me you've been vaping the whole time we were gone. Like, all right, cool. Whether you vape or not is your lifestyle choice. I don't care if you vape or not.
Yeah.
But you can't run 2 miles without stopping. She couldn't get through a lap without stopping.
Man.
So if you can't get through 1 lap without stopping, you might need to put the vape down for a little while.
Now I got a question for you on this one.
Go for it.
Is that mental strength or is that physical strength? Because on saying that, all right, now I'm going to be honest because I vape every now and then, right? But I can hop on a treadmill and I'm still going to run 1.5 miles
for sure
without getting gassed.
Yeah,
So, what do you think on that one? It's just a quick question that made me think
I feel you. No, for sure. I think that's a great question because I do personally think it's mental.
Okay, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And here's why: the human body, unless you are significantly obese, which she wasn't, right? You can do 2 miles in 24 minutes.
Yeah.
You can dang near walk a 12-minute mile.
Easy, yeah.
Right. But that's what the standards are nowadays. That's how far we've had to drop the standards, right?
Bro.
Yes. So you can walk a 12-minute mile.
Yeah.
So what that tells me is you don't want it bad enough.
Bro, I could do that right now. I could sit. I could sit for a month and do that. I think the fastest 2 mile I've had was like 13 minutes in my career.
Man, yeah. And that's
that was
solid.
Cooking.
Yeah, for sure.
I got short legs.
In fact, now I'm a sprinter, right? So I hate running distances.
Okay.
Anything past, I mean, like I'll do a mile. I still hate a mile, but I'll do it. But on that note, it is completely mental. But even just, and you can tell by the fact that she couldn't put the vape down. And to me, anything that you no longer have control over is where that line is.
Man.
Because I'll have a drink from time to time.
Yeah.
But you'll never catch me drunk the night before my PT test.
No.
Right? Not me personally, right? Because I have the discipline. I have the wherewithal. And, my dad says it like this. Sometimes you have to give up something you love for something you love a little bit more.
Man.
Yeah. And so sometimes that might not be the result per se. Right. Because she might not care about the 2 miles. She might not care about the PT test. That's whatever it is,
Yeah.
However, if you want to be a sergeant, you then have to care about the standard that we hold sergeants to.
If you want to get something you never had, you got to do something you've never done.
Yeah. And when I sit there and train, especially with everything we have going on right now, whether it's Ukraine and Russia, whether it's the Middle East, I hate running. So because I hate running, I think about the soldiers that I want to come back alive. That's how I get through my runs. So when I sit there on that 2 mile, you know what I mean? I'm saying my soldier's name, Sergeant so-and-so is coming back alive. I'm not explaining to Sergeant whoever's mother that he didn't come back because I got tired.
Yeah, right.
And that's really the way I look at it. So whether it's that you care about that or not, it's how can you frame it, right? To put whatever it is that you do care about at the center of it. So, I mean, you might want a better car, and if you want a better car, what are you going to have to do? Save some money. You might have to get 1 less vape a week. You might have to get 1 less bottle a week. You might have to go to Chipotle 1 less time that week, whatever it is, to be able to accomplish that goal. And if you have to print out a picture of that car and put it up on the refrigerator just to keep you mindful about whatever it is, or whether you need to call somebody and say, look, bro, I need somebody to make sure that I'm staying accountable and not blowing my money on crazy things because this is my goal. Exactly. And so if you tell me you want something, but then you can't put the work in for what you want, you don't want it
that bad.
Yeah, you don't,
Yeah, because, it's going to take, for me personally, as a recovered addict, that's one thing I could say is that when I wanted to get clean, I had to want it.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what anybody else said.
Facts.
It's what I wanted.
Yeah.
When you really want something, that's just it. And, the thing I've always done, and I started it in the military at a young age, was when I first signed up, I thought, man, what is it going to feel like when I graduate from basic?
Yeah.
And I thought about that.
Yeah.
And I imagined to myself how I was going to feel. And then the day I graduated and the day I got pinned, and I got my cord, I was like, man, this feels even better than what I thought it felt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I really believe that just because the Bible, if we have faith and we can imagine it, I believe
For sure.
God doesn't just give us, he said he made us in his image.
That's right.
He made us like him.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have in just that mustard seed of faith, and I have faith in him and faith of him because he created me like him,
yeah,
I can do all things that are possible through Christ.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
we
you
just
know,
gotta want it.
I was just actually listening to a preacher talk about that, and he was talking about how competitive he is, and he made the joke that like if somebody wanted to either go outside and play football or play a board game or something, that he would have to decline because he wouldn't want his members to look at him differently because of how competitive he is. But then he went on to talk about the fact that being competitive should be a byproduct of being Christian. Sounds crazy at first, right?
It's a good drive.
Yeah, right. And he went on to explain, and I 1000% agree with this, right? And you said because we're made in his image, right? And what is one thing that God has never done?
He's never failed me.
He's never lost.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're made in the image of somebody who never loses.
Right. He's already won.
Yeah, exactly. So you're like when we have that competitive drive, it's because we're looking to replicate the person whose image we're made in.
Man.
Now, right, that does not mean take it to the extent of harming your brother and sister.
Right.
You know, and that's where that line is drawn. Or, you know, a lot of people didn't realize that the disciples were more than likely teenagers.
Me and Makai was just talking about that.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? Yeah, so a lot of them, I mean, we assume that the two older ones are probably Peter and Matthew, and we'll talk about some of that stuff later. But the question that they often asked was, and argued about with each other, is which one of us is the greatest? You know, and that question comes up a couple times.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that, right, and what I think is cool about this, whether you believe in God or not, is Jesus's response was not ever, you shouldn't be great, or you shouldn't hope to be great. Instead, he said, this is how you achieve greatness. It's not the way you think it is. And this comes back to self-reliance versus self-awareness, right? Because when you and I were prepping, we talked about what makes a unit elite. And we talked about knowing the jobs of your teammates, but also putting your teammates before yourself. And that trust that you have in your teammate to execute their job, but also the fact that your partner wants to do his job well to ensure the entire team comes back alive.
Yeah.
You know, and that was really Jesus's response. Put everybody else before yourself.
Yeah.
And when you put other people first, you're going to come out on top.
Yeah.
You know, so if I put making sure, man, we were down, we had a cold weather weapons qual. You know, it did suck, you know. No, I hate the heat. I'm built for the cold, right? Like one thing that's just the way God designed me is I'm built for cold weather. Now, I wanted a perfect score on mine, and it was a different type of test than what we had normally been doing. So I was over there watching every single one. I'm calling out to people what's popping up so I can memorize. And I had one soldier who could not hit the broadside of a barn with that M17. And I was like, you know what? I need to step over and do a remedial with him. And as much as I wanted that 50 out of 50, he needed some extra help and attention and guidance. And so I took the time away from what I expected to do. And I just walked through sight picture, sight alignment with him because he clearly was not understanding how his sights were supposed to work. Which he had only shot rifles. He wasn't an MP. So for those who don't know, the primary weapon for MPs are M17, which is a pistol. Pretty much the SIG P320 is the civilian version of it. So if you've only shot rifles, I can understand the difference and trying to line up a much smaller set of sights compared to having a full-blown rifle in front of you. So I wasn't laughing at him. I wasn't making fun of him, but we were able to kind of sit there and walk through it. And I felt good at the end of the day. I didn't get my 50 out of 50. I got 49. But I still felt good at the end of the day because he went from not passing at all to hitting. So marksman is the lowest expert. What's the one in the middle? Sharpshooter.
Sharpshooter.
Yeah. So he went from not qualing at all to hitting sharpshooter.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that felt better to me.
Yeah, that's a huge blessing because, at that time you wouldn't look at it, but no matter how fast you don't think it would come, but if orders were to come in and he wasn't qualified, guess what? You got a new team member.
Right.
And that's going to be hard because they're going to put him on a rear detachment and he ain't going because he's not qualified.
Exactly.
And during a season like this, I mean,
got to stay ready.
You got to stay ready because who knows? Who knows what could pop up? And then you imagine having to go and then be doing your job and you don't even have the team you're used to.
Right.
Now you got to have someone come in from a whole other unit.
Right.
You ain't even been training with.
Yeah, exactly. And it's beyond. So people can understand how things operate, right? And I think this happens in life. Like some people say, man, well, my credit's bad. I don't understand how credit operates. And then you have some people who know how credit operates and they still don't maneuver their life accordingly.
Yeah.
You throw a new team member in, okay, they might understand the concepts of CQB.
Right.
But the timing
is off.
Yeah, people got different speeds. People have different pacing. You know what I mean? And I might get used to the fact that you might be a certain height. I'm short. You know what I mean? So I know that he can pretty much post up on my shoulder.
Yeah.
If I'm held back and you end up with somebody 6 foot, you're not posting on his shoulder if you 5'10", 5'9", and that seems like such a small detail. But that's the difference between life and death when we're overseas. Like, just those. Now you're thinking, man, like you're out of your rhythm. And that little bit of being out of your rhythm can really change how many people come home.
Yes, sir.
So that's a great point to bring up because I hadn't even looked at it that way in terms of being. I looked at it from his sense of self-worth and the fact that he felt accomplished and that he didn't give up and that he felt like he had somebody who cared enough about him. And that translated to this last one because a few of our guys went off, right? And so this was crazy, actually. We were augmenting another unit.
Okay.
When we were done, we had our troops fall back under our own command, right? So you go back to your normal chain of command, all right? So then, because we still had a split, some with one unit, some with the other, I took 2 NCOs and I said, hey, everybody on this side, they're going to report to you. Everybody on this side, they're going to report to you. You guys are going to report those numbers to me. I'm going to report those numbers to first sergeant, whatever, right? So, cool. We go for a walk with the chaplain. On this walk with the chaplain, I come across 3 of our soldiers. Okay, I called one of them, the highest ranking out of them. I say, yo, yada, yada, I got no issue with you being out here as long as you're communicating with Sergeant so-and-so, not gonna drop names out here, but Sergeant so-and-so that you're out here, like you just gotta let her know. Now, I didn't ask him if he had already said anything to her or not, right? Yeah. I gave him the opportunity to say, you know what, I didn't, but I'll send her a text or, hey, could you let her know since I'm talking to you? He tells me that he let her know.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
Right? Which in the moment, I didn't think anything about. So we're walking. They actually join us. We're coming back and they wanted to go up. We had to like climb this mountain to get cell phone service. That was the only way to get like actual service.
Right.
So now we weren't supposed to be going up that hill, but the chaplain, he's a captain. He's like, look, I will allow it. Don't get in trouble. Come back before it's dark. Know you at your own risk, whatever. So I let them know, like, look, that's an officer telling you this, right? Yeah. So if you're not back when it's dark, it's paperwork for all 3 of y'all.
Yeah.
But this guy who I had helped on the range was one of the 3 that was over there. He's the one that came to me when they got back and was like, yo, like, you know, I had to kind of coax them into making sure we got back just out of respect and make sure we're on time and yada, yada, yada. But like, it was the fact that he knew he had that relationship with me.
Yeah.
It turns out, so I ended up talking to the sergeant who was supposed to be over them. Yeah. So, I mean, you could kind of tell already from the way I told the story, they had never told her that they stepped off. And so, like, when he came to me and he kind of talked about the troubles he was having with keeping them in line, I mean, he was the lowest ranking out of the 3 of them and had been in the unit the shortest. It was like, yeah, okay, they weren't going to listen to you, which is cool. But thanks for coming in and filling me in, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, it's cool, right? Here to some degree. It's not cool that you didn't listen. It's not cool that you lied. You know what I mean? Right. But when you go overseas, man, and somebody don't know where you at and you mess around and get blown up.
Yeah.
Don't nobody know where you at.
Nobody.
Right? Because you failed to be accountable. And I mean, yeah, so guys, I know we're talking about stuff that some of you may never encounter in that regard. But when it comes to being responsible, being accountable, knowing what you need to do, but then not doing it, being okay with lying to those close to you, you're just setting yourself up for failure in other areas. At the end of the day, like, you can't lie to yourself and then expect to be able to make progress in life.
Right.
You can't lie to yourself and expect to make progress in your relationships. You can't lie in your relationships and expect progress in that regard. Even if it's about little stuff, we're not even talking about cheating and stuff like that.
Right.
But if I can't even expect you to follow through on your word,
Yeah.
that's going to cause so many issues within the home before you even get to those external factors.
Brother, if this episode didn't challenge your thinking and resonate with you, you just weren't really listening. I'm Justin Kashmirchek, founder of the EGT Universe, and it's been a pleasure being here with you on this journey. If you know someone who's starting a business, rebuilding their brand, or just needs a serious digital upgrade, hit me up. I'm at JumpCutKing on Instagram, or head over to egtuniverse.com. That's egtuniverse.com, and drop me a line. Also, show some love to Carter and the crew behind Classic Man. Head over to classicmanpodcast.com for all the guest info, all the official links, and bonus content. Also, chip in. Buy me a cup of coffee. Let's be real. If we as men don't show up together, don't band together, we can't grow together. So check back here every week, same time, you're on your favorite podcast platform for the most up-to-date content. Don't get caught slipping. Stay connected. We'll see you right here, Classic Man Podcast, next time.